Hello everyone, GoldenNova here. The deck build pack, Grand Creators, was released late this August in the OCG, and promises a new trio of archetypes for us to delve into. And despite it being a smaller set, it's just as, if not more so, exciting as an upcoming core set, because some of the most impactful decks of all time came from deck build packs. The first one ever, the Secret Forces, contained the Tier 0 super threat Nekroz, as well as the not so threatening but still remarkably powerful Ritual Beasts. Dark Saviors included Sky Strikers and all of its spell card shenanigans, and Hidden Summoners is still impacting the meta today with the Prank Kids that's just recently been hit on the ban list. But for every competitive hallmark, there's been at least one that hasn't been so hot. Even the ones containing great themes also have things like Yosenju's, For Hire, and the updated Nephthys cards, which, for one reason or another, just didn't cut it at the top tables. But I wouldn't call that the end-all be-all of a set. By the nature of the rapid release of cards and the finite amount of tournament space, not every theme is going to be a home run. What the deck build packs always get right though, is how interesting the included themes will be. For instance, P.U.N.K, the first one we'll be covering out of Grand Creators, is a theme that emphasizes synchro and fusion summoning, with a cast of monsters performing a number of traditional Japanese art forms, while giving them a cyber, neon punk aesthetic. Ukiyo-e is a form of artwork that uses woodblock prints, Gagaku is a kind of music and dance performance, Joruri is a narrative music form sung alongside puppet theater performances called bunraku, and No is a form of theater that heavily emphasizes dance while making use of props and masks. There's a lot to go over here, so let's crack open our playbooks to see what's in store, study these masters to understand their techniques, then see what pieces we can add to their gallery to accentuate their works. Spike up your hair, don your leather jackets, and blast that stereo, cause we're gonna be playing with punks. But before we continue, a quick reminder to please like and subscribe if you've enjoyed my content so far. We're on the road to 100,000 subscribers, and what better way to travel down the road than on your Duel Runner? We'll be covering iconic 5Ds characters along the way, and our next stop is 20K, where we'll start the Yusei Explained series, covering Stardust, Junk, and whatever other cards we can play to help us rev it up. We've also got a Discord, where I hope you're ready for Spooky Month! And a Twitter, where you can stay up to date on channel news and my bad takes. And if you really like what I do here, please consider joining my YouTube membership. It's basically like a Twitch sub, emotes included, or backing me on Patreon, where you can vote on a video that I make every month. It also gets you early access to my videos via the patron-only section of my Discord, provided I get the video done ahead of schedule. And whether you're a member or a patron, I get a schedule sent to you on the first week of the month, so you know what to expect for the next 4 weeks. Thank you all so much for watching, and now, back to the video. So, what's the deal with punks? Well, that's a bit hard to narrow down. Their most prominent trait is the series of level 3 Earth Psychic tuners they have, but there's also a pair of level 8 non-tuners, and all of them are meant to be fusion summoned to make a level 8 fish monster that you sync with your tuners to make a level 11 sea serpent. It's a very roundabout series of plays, so let's start with our level 3 Earth Psychic tuners and work our way through the deck from there to get a handle on everything. Gagaku P.U.N.K Wagon has 900 attack and 600 defense, and you can pay 600 life points to have them add a P.U.N.K spell from your deck to your hand. And when your opponent targets any number of P.U.N.K monsters you control for an attack or effect, as a quick effect, you can draw a card. Your tuners aren't really meant to stay on the field, but at least if they get stuck there, you can get a draw for your troubles. And while our pool of spells isn't very deep, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that one turns a P.U.N.K into an El Shaddoll construct for battles, which makes sense. Out of all the P.U.N.Ks, this one seems like the most likely to emulate another card and jump on the bandwagon. Joruri P.U.N.K Madam Spider has 900 attack and 600 defense, and you can pay 600 life points to have them add a P.U.N.K trap from your deck to your hand. Also, when you activate a P.U.N.K card or effect that targets any number of cards your opponent controls as a quick effect, you can target a face-up monster your opponent controls, and its attack becomes halved until the end of the turn. Ironically, the trap cards we have access to are arguably more proactive than our spells, and it's great to have the ability to search them, especially since they all target, meaning that you can chain Madam Spider to their activation to debuff an opponent's monster, unless your opponent has anything to say about it. Remember, read your Thunder Dragon Titan rulings, folks. I'm also a really big fan of how the artwork shows the bunraku puppeteer just behind Madam Spider, because just like how you use trap cards to limit and control your opponent, it shows just who's pulling the strings. No P.U.N.K Seaman. Just gonna give you all a moment, get your laughs out. Has 600 attack and defense, and you can pay 600 life points to add a P.U.N.K monster from your deck to your hand, except another copy of itself. Also, if sent to the grave, you can target a P.U.N.K monster you control, and it gains a permanent 600 attack boost. You've got a monster searcher that also provides a substantial bonus to another monster, hopefully to our final boss to really help bolster their winning push. It's an easy 3-of for the deck, no questions asked. Ukiyo-e Punk Shirakusai has 1200 attack and 600 defense, and you can pay 600 life points to have them fusion summon a Punk fusion monster from your extra deck, using monsters from your hand or field as material. And during your opponent's turn, you can pay 600 life points to, immediately after the effect resolves, synchro summon a Punk synchro monster using monsters you currently control. Importantly, the Punks don't have a dedicated spell card for fusion summoning, so the only way you're getting to your fusions in theme is through this prodigious painter. And while it's not necessary to synchro summon during your opponent's turn, its effect is very disruptive when used at quick effect speed, something that Prank Kids players are very familiar with. Shirakusai really brings the deck together, so it's quite necessary for a strong sense of composition. Now it's time for the main deck level 8s. No Punk Foxy Toon is a light beast monster with 2300 attack and 2600 defense. Once per turn, if they destroy a monster by battle, you can gain life points equal to that destroyed monster's original attack. While Foxy Toon is in your hand, you contribute a Punk monster to special summon them from your hand. And you can also send Foxy Toon from your hand or field to the grave as cost, and on resolution, you send another card from your hand to the grave, special summon a non-level 8 Punk monster from your deck. So we've got a monster here that plays a couple of different roles. If you need an extra attacker, you can turn a spare Punk into a 2300 attack body, which gains you life points, a welcome sight considering all the ones you have to pay, or helps you summon whichever level 3 Punk helps with your game plan. It's a -1, but if you summon anything other than Shirakusai, it basically pays for itself, so it's still very good, especially since it can also make for great synchro material if you can't field your fusion, as they have just the right level to tune with. No Punk numeral Ogre is a Dark Fiend monster with 2500 attack and 2000 defense, and once per turn when your opponent activates a monster effect, as a quick effect, you can have Ogre gain attack equal to the original attack of that monster until the end of the turn. You can also special summon them from your hand by attributing a Punk monster, and you can send them from your hand or field to the grave to add a non-level 8 Punk monster from your deck to your hand. This card functions a lot like Foxy Toon, but it's more of a reinforcement of the army than a hero lives, and can grow to absolutely enormous heights with its attack gain effect. If you're able to put them on the board opposite some negation bodies, for instance, your opponent might not want to activate any of them, as that gives numeral Ogre the boost it needs to run right over them to really get your opponent's number. Okay, time for some endgame cards. Ukiyo-e Punk Carp Rising is a level 8 water fish fusion monster with 1000 attack and 2600 defense, requiring any 2 Punk monsters as material. You contribute this fusion summoned card to special summon up to 2 non-level 8 Punk monsters with different names from your hand or deck to your grave. Summon them right to your grave. Boy, I'm good at this. You contribute this fusion summoned card to special summon up to 2 non-level 8 Punk monsters with different names from your hand and or deck in defense position. And if a monster is synchro summoned using Carp as material, you can target any Punk monster you control, and it can make a second attack during each battle phase that turn. With Carp, you can turn Shirakusai and any other Punk into a big advantage engine. Once you tribute Carp, you can summon Seaman, I'm not giving you another laughing break, you had enough, and either Wagon or Madam Spider, depending on if you want a spell or trap. You can also search one of your level 8 Punks, tribute the Wagon or Spider for their summon, then sync for your level 11, giving it a sweet 600 attack boost. And if you can fusion for them without giving up your tuner, then you can instead just go into your synchro and give it an unrestricted double attack. It's a pretty powerful fish, so it's certainly no magic carp. In fact, it takes on the ferocious qualities of Gyarados itself when it synchro summons into Ukiyo-e Punk Amazing Dragon. It's a level 11 Wind Sea Serpent synchro monster with 3000 attack and 2800 defense, requiring generic material. If synchro summoned, you can target cards your opponent controls up to the number of level 3 psychic monsters you control and in your grave, and return them to the hand. They can also target a Punk monster in your grave, except another copy of itself, and special summon it, but you can only use one effect per turn and only once per turn. It lacks the non-targeting text of Adamancipator Risen Dragite, but other than that, it's still super strong, which is doubly so if you can manage to pull this off on your opponent's turn with the assistance of Shirakusai. And with the ability to summon more Punks during your subsequent turns to do all that again, Amazing Dragon is an expert in the art of board breaking. Now it's time for our spells and traps. Gagaku Punk Crusher Beat is a continuous spell, and if your opponent activates a card or effect that targets any number of your Punk monsters, it triggers Crusher Beat's effect that allows you to target a card your opponent controls and destroy it. And if beat is destroyed in its owner's spell and trap zone by an opponent's card effect, you can activate an effect where your punk monsters can no longer be targeted by your opponent's card effects, nor can they be destroyed by them. The second effect is incredibly situational, but it does provide some kind of retaliation if your opponent tries to get rid of it, which is admittedly pretty good. However, since it can only be triggered once per turn, and can be avoided if your opponent just focuses on their own game plan, it's not the kind of card that's going to help beat your opponent to the punch. Gagaku Punk Wild Picking is also a continuous spell, and at the start of the damage step, if your punk monster battles an opponent's monster, you can destroy that opponent's monster. Easy as that. Also, if it's destroyed in its owner's spell and trap zone by an opponent's card effect, you can activate an effect that keeps your punks from being destroyed by battle that turn. This card is legit fire. I wish the second effect was more playable, but turning even your small punks into removal is fascinating, and it also works if they get attacked too. So while it can only trigger once per turn, your opponent still has to throw away one of their monsters to get anywhere or use some of their removal, meaning that when it comes to what they want to keep, your opponent will have to be very careful what they pick. Joruri Punk Dangerous Gabu is a normal trap that can target an effect monster your opponent controls and negate its effects until the end of the turn. Then, if you control a punk monster, you gain life points equal to the targeted monster's original attack. It's a searchable breakthrough skill that gains you life points and triggers Madam Spider's effect. Mechanically, there's not much more I could ask for. Aesthetically, I could do with less giant automaton that wants to eat me alive. I've already dealt with enough of that, thank you very much. Joruri Punk Nashiwari Surprise is a normal trap that targets a set card your opponent controls and destroys it, though you can target a face-up card if you control a punk monster. Once again, a really strong trap card, this one being spot removal on demand. It's certainly not the flashiest of effects, but when used with skill, your opponent isn't gonna like having to face off against it. Alright, so that's all the punk cards, but what do we do with them? Well, we do have the capability to OTK. Amazing Dragon with a double attack plus any of our level 8 no's is lethal. That's one of those really good in a vacuum scenarios. While we have good removal and negation options, they're all very slow and reactive. So I would recommend playing the deck with a lot of control elements to keep your opponent on the back foot, then hit him with all you got to end the game before they can stabilize. But what can we play to help them out? Level 3 Psychics are pretty important as far as Amazing Dragon is concerned, and while using the on-theme ones already gives us 4, what's the harm in adding a few more? Psychic Tracker and Wii Leader can be summoned alongside any of our level 3s, acting as helpful synchro material, especially in the case of Wii Leader, as it pops a monster with less than 3000 attack when used to make Amazing Dragon. It also incentivizes you to run Ghost Ogre as your hand trap of choice, and even has some synergy with Virtual World thanks to Lulu and Yan Yan. And guess what makes running them even better? That's right, Emergency Teleport to 2, baby! And if we add non-tuner level 3s, then a whole new world of level 6 synchros opens up. Virtual World Beast Juju works wonders here, acting as proactive spot removal, same with Coral Dragon if you want to draw later on, or summon Stardust Charge Warrior to get the draw immediately. You can make Naturia Barkion if you don't want to deal with any pesky traps, Naturia Beast if you can find a level 2 Earth to work with, Goyo Guardian to take some of your opponent's stuff, or Infernity Doom Archfiend for more negation or destruction. As for a silly tech pick, well, it's not a single card per se, but rather something the deck hasn't really focused on, Xyz Summoning. Not only do we have a bounty of rank 3s to choose from, we've also got a bunch of level 8s that can make use of the rank 8 pool. We can also try to fold our spare monsters into defensive options like Dingirsu, which also gives us some removal. I am gonna make a prediction here. We are going to get a Punk Xyz monster in the future, and it's gonna be Fire Attribute, because it's the only attribute we don't have yet. And that's all I've got to say about punks. The strength of this deck is going to come down to how powerful Amazing Dragon's effect is, and how well it can be executed during your opponent's turn. A wave of bounces like that can end a turn all on its own, and backed by a number of useful trap cards, you've got a good chance. But be wary, because all the pieces to do this have to be on the field, so your opponent will take every opportunity to disrupt or defang that play sequence. But hold fast to your inspiration and keep a steady hand, and you'll be able to give your opponent a masterpiece of your mind. But now, I want to hear what you all have to say. Do you think that Punk is the next voice of the generation? Or are we just going to be sticking them on the kitchen fridge? Let me know in the comments, and if you haven't already, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video around. It really does a lot to help me out. I'd also like to take this time to thank my lovely patrons, including this month's illustrious Quasar Commander, CozyBoat275, Nebula Navigators, Benjamin Meisner, Billy Spence, Genesis Yu-Gi-Oh, Gloomba331, Panther J, the Wizard Moose and the Fresh Prince of Conair, Cosmic Crusaders, Chaz Ghost, Colin Todd, George Schaefer, Hakatana, the Legendary Raven, and Panda PLS, as well as all the wonderful Starlight Explorers you see on screen now. And if you want to see the video where I totally called why Emergency Teleport should come off the list, check out this video from the Escape the Vault series where I do just that. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.